The shelter air was thick with barking and disinfectant. In one kennel, a German shepherd huddled. His name was Max. He was a shadow of fear and fury. Staff were afraid of him. Max had been there 8 months. 8 long months behind bars. No one could get near his kennel. People whispered about him. He's beyond saving. They should put him down. Max watched them. If anyone got too close, he lunged, teeth bared. A low growl rumbled in his chest. His eyes were sharp, amber shards reflecting deep pain, a past no one understood. Then she walked in. She understood trauma, not just in people, in animals too. She saw the kennel. She saw Max. He growled. Anna didn't flinch. He stared her down. Anna didn't look away. In that moment, something shifted, a tiny spark in the darkness. This is the story of Max, the feared, forgotten dog, how he became a loved companion. It's a story of patience, of understanding, of what love can achieve when everyone else gives up. Don't get too close to that one. The warning came from Sarah, the shelter director. She was showing Anna, the new volunteer, around. That's Max, Sarah said. Her voice was low. Been here 8 months. Nobody can handle him. Anna stopped before the kennel. Inside, Max lay curled in a corner, a tight ball of black and tan fur. His coat was dull, his body rigid. At first glance, he seemed asleep, but his eyes were open, watching, alert, every movement noted. What's his story? Anna asked. She kept a respectful distance. Police found him, chained up on abandoned property. Sarah sighed. We think he was a guard dog, probably abused. Bad people. She paused. He's not aggressive with other dogs, just humans, especially men. As if on cue, a male volunteer walked past. Max exploded. He slammed against the kennel bars. Teeth flashed. A guttural snarl ripped from his throat. The volunteer muttered, completely nuts, that one, and hurried on. We've tried everything, Sarah confessed. Her shoulders slumped. Trainers, behaviorists, even medication. No one can get close enough for long enough to help. She looked worried. The board meets next week. They'll decide his fate. Anna knew what fate meant. Euthanasia. She was a trauma therapist, trained to see the signs others missed. The constant hypervigilance, the fear masked as aggression, the quick defensive reactions. But she saw something else too. Deep within those ember eyes, a flicker, a possibility, not just emptiness. Can I sit here for a bit? Anna asked. She pointed to the floor in front of his kennel. Sarah looked surprised. Sure, but he won't do anything. Just growl or hide. After Sarah left, Anna sat down, cross-legged. She turned slightly away from Max. She took out a book. She began to read aloud. Her voice was calm, even, quiet. No pressure, no expectations, just a peaceful presence nearby. Max remained still. His body was a coiled spring, but the growling stopped. He listened. 20 minutes passed. Anna read. Then she closed the book. She didn't look at him. I'll be back tomorrow, Max, she whispered. She stood up slowly. She walked away without turning back. She didn't see his eyes follow her. She didn't see him shift, just a tiny bit, out of his tight corner once she was gone. You cannot be serious, Anna. Dr. Evans, the shelter vet, stared at her across the conference table. That dog is dangerous. He belongs in a specialized facility, not her home. The board meeting had been going for half an hour. Outside, rain lashed against the windows. Inside, Anna's adoption application for Max had ignited a fierce debate. With all due respect, Doctor, Anna said calmly, Max is misunderstood. His aggression stems from fear, not dominance. He needs safety, predictability, structure. The board chairman glanced at her application. You live alone, no children, no other pets. Yes, I have a securely fenced property. I work from home. I'm a trauma therapist. Anna met his gaze directly. I understand this won't be easy. It won't be quick, but I am prepared. Sarah, the director, finally spoke up. She's the only one Max hasn't reacted aggressively towards. I've seen it. There's something there. Between them. The board members argued. Risks, liability, the shelter's reputation. What was truly best for Max? Finally, the chairman called for a vote. It was close. 4 in favor, 3 against. Adoption approved. Under strict conditions. Ms. Bennett, the chairman said, addressing Anna. You must work with our designated trainer. Provide weekly updates for 3 months. Any incident, however minor, and Max returns to the shelter immediately. Anna nodded, her hand steady as she signed the papers. From the kennel block, they could hear Max barking. The storm outside was worsening. He was agitated. Anna knew the real work was just beginning. Getting him home was the first hurdle. Max refused the transport crate. He growled. He backed away. He wouldn't budge. In the end, Sarah helped Anna rig a makeshift barrier in the back of her SUV. Just enough to create a small, contained space. It wasn't ideal, but it worked. The 30-minute drive was tense. Silence filled the car, except for Max's rapid panting, and the low rumbles that vibrated every few minutes. He was nervous, alert, trapped in a moving box he didn't trust. When they arrived at Anna's small farmhouse, the rain was still falling. Max wouldn't get out of the car. Anna didn't push him. She went inside first. She left the car door wide open. He could see where she went. She placed a long leash on the floor, leading inside. Then she stepped back, gave him space. 20 tense minutes ticked by, then slowly, cautiously, Max emerged. He followed the path of the leash into the house. He kept his distance from Anna, always watching. She had prepared for him. In a quiet corner of the living room, she'd set up a safe den, an open crate lined with soft blankets, positioned so Max could see the whole room. Anything that could make sudden noise or fall over had been removed. No surprises, just calm, quiet, safety. The first 3 weeks passed slowly. Progress came in tiny increments, not giant leaps. Max began eating while Anna was in the room, but only if she stayed far away. He started sleeping more deeply. The constant tension in his body eased slightly. Physically, he remained distant. Emotionally, he was a locked door. Ben, the trainer from the shelter, came once a week. He was a large man, experienced, confident, assertive. From the start, he doubted Anna's gentle approach. "You need to show dominance," he said during his first visit. He stood at the edge of the room. Max growled from his corner den. "He needs to know who's boss." Anna shook her head firmly. "No, Ben. That would only reinforce what control meant in his past. Abuse, fear. He needs to feel safe, to learn trust, not fear." Their difference in opinion created tension. Ben warned her she was setting herself up for failure, that the dog needed clear, firm boundaries enforced immediately. But Anna held her ground, presence without pressure, routine without force. Then came the turning point. It was a quiet Tuesday evening. Anna was reading aloud, as usual. Max started pacing, restless, back and forth. The pacing turned into anxious circling. Something was wrong. Anna stood up to open the back door. In that instant, Max charged her. A loud growl erupted, teeth bared. Anna froze. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her voice remained steady, calm. "It's okay, Max," she said softly. "I'm just opening the door." She moved slowly, clearly telegraphing every movement. She opened the door to the fenced yard. Max shot outside like a bullet. He ran to the far fence, did a quick circle, then squatted. Relief washed over Anna. He just needed to go out. He didn't know how to ask. Her sudden movement had triggered his fear response. Critically, though, he hadn't bitten. He had warned, not attacked. He had maintained control even in his panic. That night, Anna hung a small bell by the back door. The plan was simple. Teach Max to ring it when he needed to go outside, but the bigger realization stayed with her. Max hadn't hurt her. Even terrified, he chose warning over biting. The next morning, Anna walked into the living room. She stopped. Max wasn't in his corner den. He was lying in the middle of the room. He flinched slightly when she entered. But this was different. He had chosen to sleep closer, more exposed, vulnerable. It meant something. Later that day, while reading, she placed his food bowl a little closer to her than usual. This time, instead of waiting for her to move away, Max cautiously approached the bowl. He kept his eyes locked on her the entire time. They were only 6 feet apart. No barrier, no growling, just a quiet, shared moment. When Ben arrived that weekend, he noticed the change immediately. Max still retreated when Ben entered, but he didn't erupt in panicked barking like before. No panic, Ben observed quietly, just watchful, alert. He looked at Anna. Something's shifted. He's thinking now, not just reacting. For the first time, Ben didn't criticize her methods. Anna showed him the bell system she was introducing. "You're giving him a voice," Ben said, his tone softer than usual. Anna nodded. He always needed one. A way to communicate his needs. And the security of knowing he'll be heard. As Ben left, he paused at the door. He might never be comfortable around strangers, Anna, especially men. He looked at her seriously. "Are you prepared for that?" Anna didn't hesitate. Yes, the invisible wall between them was shrinking. Max now slept at the foot of Anna's bed, still maintaining a small distance, but closer than ever before. He had mastered the bell system for going outside. He'd found other ways to communicate too, soft, distinct whines. Each meant something different. Hunger, restlessness, curiosity. Anna learned his language, but one boundary remained untouched: physical contact. Even now, if Anna moved too quickly or stepped too close unexpectedly, Max would flinch, retreat. The fear would flash in his eyes. The barrier instantly rebuilt. She had never once touched him, not her single pet. Ben, now convinced of Anna's patient approach, gently suggested that physical contact might never happen. "Some dogs," he said, "especially with his kind of history, they just can't cross that line. But he's okay, Anna. He's not suffering. Maybe this is enough." Anna accepted this possibility. She wouldn't force what wasn't ready, so she continued their quiet dance. Each day, moving his food bowl a fraction closer to her reading spot. Slowly, Max's invisible bubble began to shrink. One crisp autumn morning, routine was broken. A delivery van pulled into Anna's long driveway. The sound sent Max scrambling to his safe corner, as usual. But this time, the driver didn't just leave the package. He knocked loudly. Then, he tried the doorknob. The rattling sound flipped a switch in Max. In seconds, he flew across the room, barking ferociously. Hackles raised, teeth bared. He planted himself firmly between Anna and the door, a furry wall of protective fury. "Please just leave the package on the porch," Anna called out quickly. "I'll get it later." The driver looked startled but complied. He retreated to his van. Even after the van drove away, Max didn't calm down immediately. He stood rigid, trembling with adrenaline. "Thank you," Anna said softly, her voice gentle. She didn't approach him, though every instinct urged her to comfort him. "You protected me, didn't you?" Max remained on guard for almost an hour before finally returning, exhausted, to his corner. That night, Anna couldn't stop thinking about it. It wasn't random aggression, it was protection. In his fear, he had put himself between her and perceived danger. Something profound had shifted. The next morning brought another change. Anna sat reading, as always. But this time Max approached. Closer than ever before, he began circling her. Round and round. Each circle tighter than the last. Then he lay down, barely 3 feet away. Close enough for her to see the rise and fall of his chest. The quiet rhythm of his breathing. The gold flecks in his ember eyes. She kept reading. Pretended not to notice the significance. She knew not to push. If he needed to leave, the path was clear. But he stayed. Then came the snow. The first real snowfall of the year. It transformed Anna's property into a hushed, white world. To her surprise, Max loved it. For the first time, she saw something akin to pure joy in him. He bounded through drifts, buried his nose in the powder, tossed snow high in the air with his muzzle. Anna stood on the porch, laughing. A real, unrestrained laugh. "You're quite the snow dog, aren't you?" Max stopped, looked at her, his expression almost goofy, happy. He took a few tentative steps towards her, then spun around and plunged back into the white expanse, playing, but keeping a safe distance. Later that afternoon, Anna went out to shovel the long driveway. Max sat on the porch, watching her intently, tracking her every move. When Anna slipped on a patch of ice, Max tensed instantly, his body poised to move towards her. "I'm okay," she called out, regaining her balance. He relaxed slightly, but his gaze never left her until she was safely back inside. That night, he followed her inside as usual, shook the snow from his coat, curled up nearby, close, but still, no touch. Around 2 a.m., Anna woke up. The house was frigid. The furnace had died. She called the emergency repair service. Then she built a fire in the living room fireplace. Normally, Max would have stayed in the bedroom, but tonight he followed her, a silent, watchful presence. He sensed something was different. The cold night changed things. Max watched as Anna arranged blankets near the hearth, a soft nest warmed by the flickering firelight. "Technician can't come till morning," she murmured, burrowing into the blankets. "We need to stay warm here." "Okay." Max paced for a moment, uncertain. Then he lay down. Not right beside her, but not far away either. On the edge of the blankets, facing the fire, calm, vigilant, as always. The house grew colder as the hours passed. Anna slept fitfully, waking periodically to add logs to the fire. Around 4 a.m., she stirred and saw something unexpected. Max had moved. He was now lying just inches away from her, his body angled slightly towards hers, still not touching. But the space between them had almost vanished. She didn't move, didn't speak, just quietly added another log and settled back under the covers. "Good night, brave boy," she whispered. When morning dawned, the fire was embers. The house was kernel, but Anna felt warm. Because sometime during the night, Max had crossed the final invisible line. He had chosen proximity, chosen closeness. "I still wouldn't trust him around strangers," Ben cautioned during his next visit. "A breakthrough doesn't mean he's completely fixed." Anna nodded. Max lay quietly at her feet, listening. He still kept his distance from Ben, but there was no growling, no hiding. "We take it day by day," Anna said. "Touch happens now, but always on his terms." Since the furnace failure, things had shifted again. Sometimes Max would lean lightly against her leg while she worked, or rest his head near her hand, not quite touching, but inviting her to close the gap. Small moments, easy to miss, but each one a milestone. Each one whispered, "I trust you." The shelter board, impressed by Anna's detailed reports, extended the observation period, cautiously optimistic. Every 2 weeks, Anna sent updates, videos, notes, small steps, quiet victories. Winter settled into a new rhythm. Daily walks through a nearby nature preserve. At first, Max was anxious. Other walkers, other dogs, it made him tense. Anna sought out the quietest trails, the least busy times. Slowly, his confidence grew. Eventually, on remote paths, she tried short periods off-leash. To her relief, Max stayed close, came back reliably when called. The dog who once trusted no one now ran towards her at the sound of his name. One afternoon, light snow fell. They were deep in the woods, on one of their usual quiet trails. Anna unclipped the leash for a brief run. Max trotted ahead, pausing every so often to look back, checking she was still there. Then he froze, staring intently into the undergrowth. The next second, he bolted. A sharp, urgent bark echoed through the trees. "Max, come," Anna called, startled. No response, just more barking, persistent, sharp, different from his usual sounds. She pushed through snow-laden branches, following the noise. Then she saw it. Max stood beside a still figure, a young woman, half buried in the snow. She wasn't moving. Max barked again, nudged her hand with his nose. "Good boy," Anna whispered, immediately kneeling beside the woman. She was breathing, but shallowly. Her skin was icy, her clothes too thin for the weather, her leg twisted at an unnatural angle, likely broken. She must have fallen, become immobilized, hypothermic. Anna called emergency services, gave their location using trail markers. She covered the woman with her own jacket, gently urged Max's warm body close beside the woman, sharing his heat. For 20 tense minutes, they waited. Max stayed perfectly calm beside the injured hiker, ears alert, eyes watchful. Then they heard voices. The rescue team. Max tensed. A low growl rumbled. "It's okay," Anna said calmly. "They are here to help." But as the 3 male rescuers approached with gear and flashlights, Max grew more agitated. Anna gently clipped on his leash, pulled him back slightly. "He's not aggressive," she explained quickly. "He's protective. He found her." The paramedics worked efficiently, stabilizing the hiker, preparing her for transport. Max stayed close to Anna's side, alert but quiet, observing every move. Spring arrived with a letter. It was from the shelter board. The observation period was officially over. Based on the documented progress, it read, "We consider Max's rehabilitation a success story, one that will inform our future work with similar cases." Anna smiled as she pinned the letter to her fridge. Beside it, she hung photos, pictures charting Max's journey. From the terrified, snarling dog in the shelter corner, to the cautious, trusting companion who now shared her home, her heart. His transformation wasn't just emotional, it was physical too. The dull coat now shone, his body was strong, well-nourished, his eyes once haunted now held warmth. Yes, he was still wary of strangers, especially men, but his reaction wasn't instant fear anymore. He looked to Anna first, gauged her response, waited for her cue. There had been setbacks, days when old ghosts surfaced, days he retreated, fear momentarily winning. But they always moved forward again, each step back followed by 2 steps forward. Today marked a new milestone. They drove back to the shelter, not as residents, as guests. Sarah had asked Anna to speak with potential adopters, share her experience, show what was possible. As they pulled into the parking lot, Max tensed. He recognized the place. He pressed against the car window, alert, nervous, but not panicked. Anna opened the door. He exited slowly, stayed glued to her side. Inside, shelter staff stared, open-mouthed. Was this the same dog, the one no one could approach, now walking calmly beside Anna? Still watchful, still cautious, but quiet, controlled. "I can't believe that's him," a volunteer whispered. Sarah greeted them warmly, crouched down slightly, giving Max space. "You look magnificent," she said softly to him. Then to Anna, "We have a group waiting in the training room. They are eager to hear from you." Inside, about a dozen people sat in a semicircle, potential adopters, a few volunteers. Max scanned the room, then slipped behind Anna as she entered. He didn't growl, didn't hide. As Anna began speaking, he laid down beside her chair, not leaning against her, but close, listening. She told the whole story, the fear, the tiny steps, the patience, the quiet victories. She explained her approach, patience without pressure, boundaries without force, allowing him to set the pace of his own healing. His aggression wasn't the problem, she explained. It was a survival mechanism. Once we understood the fear beneath it, and gave him other ways to feel safe, the aggression faded on its own. At the end, a woman in the back raised her hand. "There's a shepherd mix back in the kennels. Been here 3 months. They say he's too anxious, that he'll never be good with kids. Do you think, is there hope for him?" Anna smiled. "Every dog is different," she said, "but with the right person, the right approach. Yes, change is possible, in remarkable ways." After the talk, Sarah approached Anna. "Would you ever consider consulting for us?" Anna looked down. Max lay peacefully, his head now resting gently on her foot. To an outsider, it was a simple moment. A woman and her dog. But Anna knew. She knew what they had overcome together. The fear, the distance, the walls. She remembered the moment everything changed. She bent down, stroked his soft ears. "You just needed someone to see past the fear," she whispered. "Someone who understood your armor was just protecting a heart that had been hurt." Max leaned into her touch, his eyes closed contentedly. The dog nobody could touch had found his person, and finally, truly, found his home.